Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jasu review for June the 20th. It is Thursday today, and you might have noticed we're changing things up little bit here. The show format is going to be a little bit more limited this week, as well as going forward. I'm going to take a little bit of time here at the beginning of the show to explain why that is. Basically, I've just been not happy with the direction the show has been going. It started off really rough, and I was hoping that things would improve over time, but we didn't really get there at the rate I was looking to go at. And I think, in retrospect and analysis of the whole situation, I think the big problem was I was a bit too ambitious with the type of show that I was thinking of doing there. The whole 1 hour format with a bunch of prepared segments and 8 pages of show notes is just really too much for me to keep up with on a week-to-week basis, just between my work schedule and my stream schedule and all the other games. Meet Space Game sessions I have scheduled throughout the week. I just don't have the time to prepare enough to do the type of show I would like to do. I was putting in a bunch of work into getting this show out there every week, and I was falling behind from one week to the next, doing less and less preparation each time. And not only do I think it shows in the quality of the discussion on the previous podcasts, but honestly, I don't think the underlying material was ever really that good in the first place. Again, I kind of bit off more than I could chew with keeping up with following along 8 pages of show notes and keeping up with the music cues and screen transitions and all of that. It's a lot to keep track of when I honestly struggle to form coherent thoughts in the first place, even without having to stay on top of all of those distractions. So with that in mind, I'm going to be simplifying the show format a fair deal. I still like the idea of a weekly show where I keep you guys up to date on what's going on with the stream here. So we're going to keep doing that. And that's essentially all that the Jasu review is going to be anymore, is just what used to be the recap section of the show that I did at the start is basically going to be the whole show from here on out, where I just talk about what we've been playing this week, a little bit of what I thought of what we've been playing, and giving you guys a preview of the things that are going to be coming up on the stream next week. Now, I still like the idea of doing the big long form game discussions, but I don't think I can stay on top of those on a weekly basis. So I will occasionally do big long podcasts where I go in detail talking about a specific game, but that's not going to be a weekly or even regularly scheduled thing. I'm just going to kind of prepare that stuff in my spare time, and when I think it's ready, we'll go and do a show about that. And that was kind of the main feature, the part of the show that I think is most interesting for pure listeners, people who are actually downloading the podcast and listening to it at work and stuff. So we're basically splitting up the Jasu review into its component parts. So the weekly review, where I just recap the stream and give you the news of the upcoming stream stuff, that is going to stay as the Jasu review. We're going to do that every week, where I'm going to do it live on stream. We're going to throw it up on YouTube, and that's going to be that. Simple little thing. Hopefully take less than half an hour every week. Basically no preparation, just because I'm just talking about stuff that I've done in the last week. So not a lot of show notes or anything. And then in addition to that, we're going to be doing the occasional long-form game discussion, which I'll be preparing in my own time. Maybe I don't even do it live. I don't know. I'll think about that. But that I'm going to continue to put up on Podomatic for the people who were interested in those types of discussions. I haven't thought of a name for the sort of offshoot downloadable audio podcasts that I'm going to keep doing in that format. But, I'll think about that. Like I said, I've got one prepared for Symphony of the Night that was going to be this week's Jasu review, but is going to be this separate thing instead. And the third thing is I'm toying with the idea of doing a weekly Steam, basically a Steam shopping session where I check out all the new releases on Steam every week. That's probably going to be like a third thing that I'm doing every week. Maybe it'll turn into a regular thing, who knows. But yeah, after I'm done with the Jasu review right here, you can stay tuned, where I'm basically just going to be browsing Steam and making fun of trailers and Steam store pages and stuff for all the new releases that have come out in the last week. So that'll be fun, and that's what's going on here with the channel. I guess I wish I'd kept at least some of the trappings of the old Jasu review format. I missed the theme song. Do I still have that here now that we've gotten the kind of format update stuff out of the way? Do I have the theme song handy to queue up here? Whatever, we'll edit it in post. Only not, because we're not doing post anymore. Really, the most horrible thing about the podcast for me was the editing process. Just cutting out all the silence and stuttering and stuff for the audio download, because that stuff just doesn't fly in the pure audio format the way that it does in on video, where you can actually see me, I don't know, gesticulating frantically to try to come up with the right words. On the audio download, that just appears as silence, which is not so great. And just having to listen to the show myself, I'm just like, oh, this is not good at all. I'm horrible at this. And it was just torturous and a real blow to, I don't know, just my self-esteem. And I don't want to annoy people, because I know this annoys me when streamers and content creators talk about how shitty their content is and how they're not going to do it anymore because they hate how shitty it is. There's a couple of YouTubers actually who I know took down a bunch of their old videos for that reason, and it kind of irritated me because, like, as a viewer, I'm just like, hey, I liked it. What are you doing, taking down this stuff that you were putting out that I actually liked? Maybe there's a couple people who have that opinion, but the bigger reason why I'm not doing the show the way it used to be anymore is because it was just too much work every week for, frankly, a product that I was not happy with. So we were done. Yeah, I don't know why I kept going on the intro there. We're done with that. Let's get into the actual, weekly stream review. So the first thing we did last week was we started playing some Drod RPG, Tendry's Tale. So Drod is an acronym for Deadly Rooms of Death, which is a puzzle game series on the PC. It plays kind of like a roguelike, only it doesn't have the random dungeon generation and all of that stuff. It's a puzzle game, actually, where you've got your main character on one tile, and he's got a sword that occupies another tile, and you can spend your turn to either move, or you can rotate the sword one tile. And if you run the sword into enemies, it kills them. And that's kind of what the game is based around, is manipulating the movement of your character and the rotation of your sword to try to fend off hordes of enemies in a kind of turn-based sort of roguelike playing system. Although, again, it's not a roguelike. I don't know what you'd call that genre of game where it's like a overhead, turn-based, where you control a single character. Almost all of those types of games are roguelikes. But anyways, this one... So whereas the mainline Drod series was more of a pure puzzle game, where you're just going through and clearing out monsters in a long series of puzzle rooms, Drod RPG changes things up a bit, where it's still the same control scheme and the same basic gameplay conceit, but it adds some kind of RPG trappings. And I mean RPG trappings in kind of the video gamey sense, whereas instead of talking about storytelling and branching paths and stuff, in most video games, RPG elements means hit points and levels and stats, and essentially building up the strength of your character over the course of the game. So there is some element of puzzle solving in Drod RPG, but it largely becomes a game of managing your resource expenditures. You've got money, you've got your hit points, and various other you got keys, and you're basically managing those three resources, trying to figure out what's the most efficient way to clear the dungeon. And if you go about it very bad efficiently or very inefficiently, you can actually end up stuck at dead ends where it's just impossible to proceed, and then you have to reload an old save. And there's actually bonus stuff that you can uncover if you go through really efficiently. You get kind of a score at the end of the game that ranks you on how much stuff you found, how efficiently you cleared out the dungeon, and all of that stuff. It actually kind of reminded me a little bit of For the Frog, the Bell Tolls, which is another kind of really minimalistic RPG where you're going around collecting items to buff up your stats to get through monsters that are blocking your path, whereas that was more of kind of a adventure game format where it was strictly linear. You go here, you find the sword and the shield and the chainsaw to chop down the tree, and it was very kind of an adventure game format wrapped in the trappings of an RPG. This uses kind of the same gameplay system where you have that same thing where you're gated off by a monster blocking your path and you've got to go find the items to buff up your character to get through them, but it's not strictly linear. You've got multiple pathways through where you can, oh, maybe I go through the monster, or maybe I spend a few keys to go through these doors on the side, and there will be, or maybe this one path gives me an attack up buff, maybe this other path gives me a few keys. So you're kind of managing your resources in that way, and it becomes like kind of an actual game in that way. Pretty compelling. It's also got a great sense of humor to it too. That's always been kind of a feature of the Drod series, is this kind of silly sense of humor that it's got. The writing is really entertaining. This one's obviously, being an RPG, is a little bit more story driven than the other ones, although there's still not much to it. It's actually got full voice acting too, which I don't remember if the old Drod games had that or not, but the voice acting's pretty entertaining too. We'll go with entertaining, not, Oscar quality, but maybe like video gamey Oscar quality. There's a couple voice actors in particular who it sounds like they're just deadpan readings with no effort into the acting or whatever, who I kind of guess are probably the devs of the game or something like that. One guy in particular, who's the tutorial guy, is just like flat reading. And it's like, you can use keys to open doors and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know what, something about that guy makes him sound like just your generic game developer voice. Anyways, that was Drod RPG. We ended up playing that one right to the end over the course of 2 streams. Took me, I think, about 10 hours-ish. Very poor efficiency. I actually kind of needed chat's help to get through this one. I ended up actually resorting to cheating because I got really stuck at one point. Although it turns out that I failed at cheating, and the cheating that I tried to do didn't exactly work. But I ended up in the course of trying to cheat, I figured out the way to get through the game anyways. So that was Drod RPG Tendry's Tale. The next thing we did on stream last week was we did another retro showcase. This is kind of an ongoing series I've been doing, or just a periodic feature really, where I pick a theme for the night basically and show off a bunch of retro games centered around that theme. Last time we did Japanese puzzle games. The time before that it was old SNES imports, I think it was. And this time it was ninja games, or games featuring ninjas. The inspiration from this actually came from the suggestion box, which is a little widget I have below the stream there, where you can type in a suggestion for a game you'd like me to play, and then I'll play it, maybe, if it doesn't cost me too much money. One of the suggestions was the Ninja Warriors, which is a game that I was familiar with, and I knew it wasn't going to really be enough to occupy a full stream. But it kind of started from there, and I thought, well, rather than doing a whole day centered around Ninja Warriors, maybe we do a whole day centered around ninjas in general. So that's what we did. We made 6 hours of it, actually, played about a dozen different games. The main feature of which was the Ninja Warriors. Like I said, we played a dozen games, so I'm not going to go into a ton of detail about all of these, but the main feature was the Ninja Warriors. I did play that one through to completion. I should clarify here too. I played both Ninja Warriors games. There was the original, which was an arcade title. It was like this big, massive widescreen. I think it might have even been 3 screens in the arcade. But yeah, it's super wide horizontal format, where it's kind of reminiscent of something like a Russian Attack or Bad Dudes or something like that, where you're just walking along a strict 2D plane and with enemies running at you from both directions. Really simple little game, although a fair bit of fun. Looks good for the time, I guess. Had some good music too. I had a decent time with it, but the real feature, and I figure the one that was they actually meant when they typed Ninja Warriors in the suggestion box, was the sequel on the Super Nintendo, which was called in Japan the Ninja Warriors Again, which is a great title, and I think it's a damn shame that they didn't keep it for the English version. But the English version is just called the Ninja Warriors, and that's kind of the more well-known popular game. And the Ninja Warriors, I'll just call it the Ninja Warriors Again to disambiguate the two. The Ninja Warriors Again is an absolute classic. This is actually one of my favorite brawlers, next to Streets of Rage. So it's a little bit unusual for a 2D brawler, actually. It takes, like the original Ninja Warriors, it takes place on a strictly 2D plane, so there's no Z-axis. You don't go up and down. And It's only a one-player game. Almost all beat 'em ups from time immemorial back to Double Dragon have been at least two-player experiences. This one is only one player, but it kind of needs to be one player because of that simple horizontal plane where you don't have that z-axis, can't move up and down, which sounds kind of simple and bad for a beat 'em up, but to compensate for that, you've got a bunch of cool different special moves. There are 3 different characters you can play as in the game. You got Kunoichi, who kind of resembles the main character from the original Ninja Warriors. Then you've got Ninja, who is not really the kind of lithe acrobatic ninja you would expect from the word ninja. He's actually like this big hulking tank buster robot guy. Actually, they're all robot guys. That's the kind of the central conceit of the Ninja Warriors series, is you're playing as these robot ninjas. And their robotness is that was one of the cool things about the original Ninja Warriors, is you had kind of clothing damage where your character kind of looks like a sneaky ninja, but as they take damage, bits of their clothing falls away and you see the robot parts underneath. It actually had location-based damage too, where like if you took a hit to the head, it would blow off your mask and reveal your robot face. And if you take a hit to the chest, it blows off your ninja, whatever you call it, your ninja shirt to reveal the robot parts underneath. Ninja Warriors, again, doesn't quite have that detailed damage system. Instead, your character just kind of burns and reveals their robot parts in the death animation. Oh yeah, and anyways, then with exception being the third character, who had the long, I think it was Kamaitachi, something like that, who is actually the one character that actually just straight up is a robot. He looks like a robot. Doesn't even make any effort to conceal it whatsoever. Just letting that robot freak flag fly, as it were. And all 3 characters play very differently. They have a wide array of different special moves, and which is really cool. I didn't really make too much effort to play through this one skillfully. I basically credit-fed my way through the game, although it does have a somewhat unforgiving checkpoint system, so it took a bit of effort to get through this one. But because I kept on getting game overs, I was able to cycle through the different characters repeatedly and kind of got a feel for their different movesets. The ninja in particular plays very differently from the others. He can't even jump, actually, but instead he's got kind of a rocket pack or rocket boots or something that he kind of used, so he can jet across the screen very quickly, actually, and do this kind of dashing kick. He can do kind of a slow charge up jump. That's just kind of a sudden leap forward. He can stomp on enemies. But it's because of that the characters have their own different strengths and weaknesses based on that. So the robot ninja is really got a really powerful attack, a bunch of cool sweeping AoE moves, but he has a hard time breaking out of crowds. Like if he gets surrounded and beat on, it's kind of hard for him to bust out of that. Kunoichi, on the other hand, has this big flying air leap and is really good at kind of dancing around the screen and keeping out of danger. She's got more of an evasive type play style. And Kamaitachi is basically just like a whirling death machine, just pure offense. He's also got really long range as well. Anyways, Ninja Warriors, again, was a really fun time. It also has an epic final boss theme, too. Just the music in general is great, but the final boss theme in particular is just fantastic. So yeah, Ninja Warriors, again, really good time. Coincidentally, I think it was just a couple days after I played this on stream, the Ninja Warriors once again got announced for a North American release. This is an upcoming Switch title. I think it's on PS4 as well, and hopefully it's coming to PC. No announcement for that, though. Which is basically a remake of the Ninja Warriors again. A full HD remake, got the widescreen format, 2 new characters, a bit reminiscent of, there was an HD remake of another kind of retro old SNES game. I want to say it was called Wild Gunners, something like that. It had like an Old West quasi steampunk type theme to it, where you could play as it had a Western theme to it. It was kind of a what's the genre of game where it's like basically you got a character at the front of the screen who's running back and forth, and you've got a targeting reticle that you're using to shoot enemies in the background. One of those types of games. In fact, since we're not doing the big formal podcast thing anymore, I can just take a break in the middle of the podcast to look up whether I have the name of this game right. No, I do not. Well, whatever. Western quasi-steampunk themed. Lots of robots. You shoot them and chuck dynamite at them. And that had another HD remake similar to the Ninja Warriors once again. This game has nothing to do with anything I did on stream last week. And then after that, we kind of did a lightning round where I just briefly showed off a bunch of different games on this Ninja showcase. We did Mystic Warriors, which is kind of a childhood favorite of mine. This is a game that I played all the time in the arcade at the local Chuck E. Cheese back in the day. Really cheesy, kind of early 90s aesthetic to it, kind of a garish color scheme too, and in particular some of that awesome arcade quality early 90s voice acting as well. A really fun little game too, kind of easy for an arcade game, which I actually kind of like. I imagine that it wouldn't take me too much effort to, relative to other arcade games, wouldn't be too hard to try to go for the 1cc on Mystic Warriors. In fact, I remember I was able to get a good distance into it as a kid just on 1 credit. But anyways, it's worth checking out. Again, this is just one stream that I did. You can find it on YouTube and on the Retro Showcase Ninja games. We also played through Ganbare Goemon 2, 3, and 4 a little bit, showing those off. Played through Little Ninja Brothers, which is a RPG brawler hybrid on the NES, which I played back in the day, and which was actually my introduction to the whole RPG genre, although I didn't really take to it at the time. It's an interesting little game, but it has a lot of archaic little quirks from NES era RPGs, basically. It feels very Dragon Questy, just in that you got that encounter rate jacked up to a ridiculous degree, but it's not as god-awfully horrible as something like a Dragon Quest or a Final Fantasy, speaking strictly about the NES ones. Just because the battle system is a bit more interesting. It actually, instead of your traditional turn-based system, you go into a little one-screen beat-em-up section and you fight off a horde of enemies whenever you get into a battle. Really cool little game, Little Ninja Brothers. Maybe we'll come back to it on stream someday, who knows. We played through Shinobi on PS2 without audio because I couldn't get the audio working for some reason. Used to love this game back in the day. It's a little bit more dated than I expected it would be. The controls, in particular, it controls with the joystick, but only along the 8 cardinal directions. You got no in-between directionality, and it feels a bit clunky. But other than that, once you get used to it, it's actually a pretty solid game. I still really like Shinobi on PS2. By special request, we played Shadow of the Ninja on NES, which was a pretty good time. Cool little Ninja Gaiden type game, although really, really difficult. I didn't make it too far into that one. We played Journey to Silius, also by special request. Doesn't really have anything to do with ninjas, but it has a really cool soundtrack. It's also not a really great game, but it has a really cool soundtrack, so I'm glad we got to check that out anyways. Right after... Oh, you're right. You're right. I totally have that here on the list, Saturn Meteor. Right after Shadow of the Ninja, we did Shadow Dancer on Mega Drive / Genesis. I was really rusty at that game. It was really embarrassing. It took me a lot of effort just to get through the first stage. And yeah, we used up all our continues right at the beginning of the second stage. Really awesome little game, though. Surprisingly tactical for essentially a 2D Shinobi-esque platformer. You got your main feature is you got your little ninja dog helper who you can charge up to basically tangle with enemies and distract them so that you can knife them from the back. Really cool little game. I've always been meaning to go back to Shadow Dancer. I was close to getting the 1cc on it back when we were kind of made it the main focus of the stream a few years ago, but I'd never quite followed through. And then just at random, I picked a random NES ninja game. It was called Ninja-kun Ashura no Sho, to butcher the Japanese title there. It is, I believe, I learned later on, this one's actually part of the Ninja Jajamuru-kun series. I'm actually not too familiar with the series in general, but I know it's a big thing in Japan. Anyways, Ashura no Sho is a terrible game, though. I don't know if the Ninja Jajamuru-kun games are good in general or well regarded, but this one in particular was a hot pile of garbage. Avoid it. Then yeah, we followed that up with a little bit of Tales of Maj'Eyal. I started up a Gunslinger run, and then moved on to a Psyshot run. We kind of been going through the Steam Tech classes in Tome. I'm actually still in the middle of one of them. We're in the midst of a Psyshot run at the moment. And yeah, it's been a pretty good time. I feel like the Steam Tech characters work a little bit better in the Embers of Rage campaign than they do in the main campaign. And just because the Steam Tech stuff is more closely integrated into the main world and to the towns and everything. Like, you've got shops that can sell you Steam Tech stuff, whereas if you play them in the original campaign, you're completely reliant on drops to get your Steam generators and your infusions, or not infusions, they're called something else in Steam Tech, whatever. But it's been kind of interesting checking those out in the main campaign for the first time. Can I see you on Twitch dark mode? I totally can. Just barely, but yes, I can. That's a new little emoticon. Is that? Or no, that's got to be a Unicode emote. So yeah, that was Tome. We kind of suspended that one in the middle. I intended it to be just a quick little thing that I'd do before the next big thing on... Oh, is that a ninja? Is that a ninja emote? It kind of just looks like a gray little person. Which I guess is I guess that's one definition of a ninja, if that's how... Actually, most of the ninjas we played as on the Ninja Showcase actually ended up being clad in blue or red. Because, yeah, Jatamura-kun wore red, Kunoichi from Ninja Warriors was in red, Little Ninja Brothers Ninja was in red. Although Little Ninja Brothers Ninja is not actually a ninja. That was kind of a... I don't know what you call it, kind of a papering over of the original theme for the North American version. So if you want to check out the Ninja Brothers, I should have talked about this earlier, but it's part of an ongoing series. I think it's called Ninja Boy. They're called in North America, but in the original Japanese, the series is called Super Chinese. It was kind of like a kung fu Chinatown type of theme to that one, but I don't know, for some reason apparently you can't call a game Super Chinese in the West, so they went with Ninja Brothers instead, which is not exactly the same type of theme, which I guess makes it technically not really a ninja game at all, but it has ninja in the title, so we played it on Ninja Night. Anyways, after we got done with Tome, although we weren't done with Tome, we kind of got Tome interrupted for the next big thing on stream here, which is kind of the current and upcoming thing, which is we're participating in the annual 4-Job Fiesta run. If you don't know what that is an annual charity event where basically a bunch of people play Final Fantasy V on Twitch or just in their personal time, whatever, and go through with a particular stipulation where Final Fantasy V is famous for its job system, with very, very free-flowing. You can change jobs basically anytime you want and mix and match your skills between the different job classes. And the 4-Job Fiesta is a special challenge where you restrict yourself to only 4 specific jobs, one from each crystal in the game that the challenge gives you. So instead of just freely switching between your jobs, you must have one of each of those 4 jobs in your party at any given time during the run. Although you're still given the freedom to mix and match skills between those jobs and switch characters between jobs over the course of the run. And that's where kind of the interesting puzzle aspect comes into it, where you've got to figure out, how am I going to get through this boss with a thief and a dragoon and a mystic knight? Okay, you don't typically have to think too hard if you've got a mystic knight, but I participated in the traditional 4-Job Fiesta run a couple times. I actually streamed last year's Fiesta, and it was kind of a good time, but I'm kind of tired of it. So I thought to change things up a bit this year, we'd go a little bit of a different route. I'm still basically obeying the Fiesta rules. It's the same stipulation. You got 4 jobs, or actually we're doing 5. Get to that in a minute. And we can only use those jobs. Only we're not playing Final Fantasy V. We are playing Final Fantasy Tactics, which has a very similar type of job system, and more even it's concurrent with, or kind of congruent with Final Fantasy V to the point where the jobs are actually basically the same. It's very easy to convert over the Final Fantasy V jobs to Final Fantasy Tactics jobs. So you can basically do the same type of challenge, and sure enough, that's what we're doing. This is not the first time I've done a 4-job Fiesta run for Final Fantasy Tactics. If you check out my YouTube channel, I actually did an old Let's Play series under the 4-job Fiesta rules, although that one kind of hit a brick wall at the predictable point in Final Fantasy Tactics where you would expect any challenge run to end, potentially, which is on the Riovanes castle fight where you solo against Ygraf. I had an archer on that run. I had to solo Ygraf with an archer, and I eventually figured out how to do it, but we couldn't beat Velius in the fight after, so that run kind of died. So I'm not really looking for a big challenge run this time around, so Final Fantasy Tactics, your maximum party size is 5, so I'm allowing myself 5 jobs for this run, and those jobs are Dark Knight, Dragoon, Summoner, Squire, Chemist. Now, one of those jobs, Dark Knight, will not be familiar to you if you've only played the original PlayStation version of Final Fantasy Tactics. Dark Knight is a job that was added for the War of the Lions version of the game, which was released on PSP a number of years back. So because we rolled... And so Dark Knight, I'm actually using Gilgabot, which is kind of the random job generator for the the official 4-job Fiesta. So he gave me Mystic Knight as one of my classes, and I decided that Mystic Knight kind of converts most closely to the Dark Knight class. So we're having to play the War of the Lions version this time around. I've got the anti-slowdown. There were some technical problems with the War of the Lions game, but I've patched it to fix those. There's a fix you can get online that removes all the slowdown and crap like that. But so the one way that Final Fantasy Tactics very dramatically differs from Final Fantasy V in its job system is in Final Fantasy V, your jobs unlock at specific points in the story, where basically the 4 crystals shatter one by one, and every time one does, you get a new set of jobs added to your list. In Final Fantasy Tactics, you unlock jobs by leveling up your old ones. So in order to get to, say, the Summoner class, you have to reach a certain level in your Chemist, and then Black Mage, and then I think it's Time Mage, and then you get your Summoner. It's that type of system. So for that reason, unlike with the Final Fantasy V 4-job Fiesta run, where you just unlock your jobs by playing the game, and you just switch to that job as soon as you unlock it. The early bits of the Final Fantasy Tactics Fiesta run are largely based around JP manipulation tricks and trying to get your characters to their endpoint classes, their final jobs, as quickly as you can. And this is where I kind of have to invent my own rules for the challenge. So my rule that I use is I can use any skills that I want from the other classes that are part of the challenge on my way to getting to that class. So for example, in the course of getting my guys getting the Summoner class unlocked, I have to pass through Black Mage to do that, and I'm not allowed to use Black Mage skills because Black Mage is not one of my classes, but I can still use Chemist skills because Chemist is one of the jobs that we're allowed to use. Now, the big wrench in everything is the Dark Knight job is intended to be kind of a big uber endgame class, and it has a tremendous amount of required class masteries to be able to unlock. You need to fully master Knight and Black Mage and reach level 8 in like 4 other jobs. So basically the person who's going to be our Dark Knight is going to spend almost the entire game just not having any skills at all, and having, like, for example, we have to master Black Mage without using any Black Mage skills. So that's going to be kind of a interesting challenge, and that's going to be a large part of what the early game of our Final Fantasy Tactics 4-job Fiesta run is going to be about. We just started that yesterday, and that's pretty much what we're going to be doing for the next couple weeks, which very quickly and succinctly gets the upcoming stream news segment out of the way. That's the Final Fantasy Tactics 5-job Fiesta run, and that's what we're going to be doing for the next I want to say probably 2 weeks, maybe 3, depending on how difficult this combination of jobs ends up being. It's really good for us that we got both Squire and Chemist, because that lets us use a bunch of skills in the early game at least. But I can talk about this when we actually get started playing the resuming our Final Fantasy Tactics run, which I'm gonna do right after the show here. So that's the end of the show. There's not really going to be any mailbag anymore. There never really was a mailbag in the first place, other than the couple questions that we got after the Iconoclast show, which, thank you guys for watching and listening and writing in and all of that. I guess we don't necessarily have to close down the mailbag. You can still reach me by all the same formats. Comment on this video or message me on Twitter or Twitch if you got anything you want answered or addressed on the show here. The other update, we are no longer doing the audio download for this show, but it will still be up on YouTube, and you can find it there. And that's the new Jasu review, the new low-effort Jasu review. Thanks for watching, and now back to your regular scheduled stream.